You're sitting in a waiting room. The doctor said your results would be ready in 3 days. It's been 3 days. Nobody has called. You don't know what they found. You don't know if it's serious. You don't even know exactly what you should be afraid of yet. And somehow, that nothing feels worse than if someone had already told you the bad news. Why does that happen? You'd think bad news would be the worst thing you could hear. But ask anyone who has lived through a serious diagnosis, and most will tell you the same thing. The days before, they knew were harder than the day they found out. The unknown stretched longer than the disease itself. This isn't a personal flaw. It isn't anxiety running wild for no reason. It's something stranger than that. It's a survival system, built over hundreds of thousands of years, still running in your skull right now, and it was never designed for waiting rooms. To understand it, you have to go back. Not centuries, hundreds of thousands of years, to a much smaller, much more exposed version of you. Picture an early human standing at the edge of a forest. Somewhere in the grass, something moved. Maybe it was wind. Maybe it was a leopard. The human doesn't know which. And in that single moment, not knowing is the most dangerous thing in the world. Notice what's actually happening inside that moment. The grass is still. The wind has dropped. There's no growl, no flash of movement, no proof of anything at all. And yet the body has already started preparing. Muscles tighten. Breathing shortens. Attention narrows to a single patch of grass. None of this is a choice. It's a default setting, installed long before language, long before fire, long before this particular human was even born. Here's the problem your ancestor faced. A known danger has a known response. If a leopard is standing right in front of you, your body already knows what to do. Freeze, fight, or run. The threat is defined. The path forward is clear, even if it's terrifying. But an unknown rustle in the grass has no clear response at all. It could be nothing. It could be everything. Your brain has to prepare for every possibility at once, and it cannot fully relax until the uncertainty resolves one way or the other. This is where the amygdala comes in. It's a small, almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, and its job is simple. Scan for threat, and scan fast. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping exactly how this circuit works, tracing the pathways that let a sensory signal trigger fear before the thinking part of your brain has even identified what it's looking at. In other words, your brain reacts to ambiguity before it understands it. You don't need to know what's in the grass to feel your heart rate spike. You just need to know that you don't know. That single gap between sensing danger and identifying it is where fear of the unknown is born. Now here's where it gets stranger. You might assume your brain would calm down once it had any information at all, even bad information. That's not what the research shows. In 2016, a team at University College London, led by neuroscientist Archie de Burker, ran an experiment that has become one of the clearest demonstrations of this effect. Participants were connected to a mild electric shock device and shown a series of symbols. Some symbols meant they would definitely be shocked. Some meant they definitely would not. And some meant there was roughly a 50% chance either way. You'd expect the certain shock to cause the most stress, since it's the only outcome guaranteed to hurt. It didn't. The 50% uncertainty condition produced the highest stress response of all, measured through both self-reported anxiety and pupil dilation, which tracks the body's physiological arousal in real time. People were more rattled by not knowing whether they'd be hurt than by knowing for certain that they would be. Let that sit for a second. Certainty of pain was easier on the body than uncertainty about pain. What made the finding so striking was the shape of the curve. Stress didn't rise steadily as the chance of a shock increased from 0 toward 100%. It spiked hardest right in the middle, at the point of maximum uncertainty, then actually dropped back down as the outcome became more predictable again, even when predictable meant predictably bad. The brain, it turned out, wasn't really afraid of pain. It was afraid of not being able to prepare for it. This wasn't a fluke limited to a lab and a shock machine. Around the same era, neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky was studying wild baboons in Kenya, tracking how social hierarchy shaped stress hormones over years of fieldwork. He found that baboons lower in the social order, the ones who never knew when a dominant baboon might suddenly turn on them, carried chronically higher stress hormone levels than baboons facing clear, predictable threats. Unpredictability itself was the stressor, not the threat, the not knowing when it might arrive. So why would evolution build a brain that fears the unknown more than danger itself? Wouldn't it make more sense to save your strongest stress response for things actually guaranteed to hurt you? It would, if you only ever faced one threat at a time. Your ancestors didn't live like that. An unknown threat in the wild was never really one thing. It was every possible bad outcome layered on top of each other at once. The rustle in the grass might be a predator, a rival group, a venomous snake, or simply nothing at all. Your brain couldn't afford to relax and assume it was nothing, because the one time it guessed wrong could be the last mistake it ever made. A known threat, by contrast, only requires one specific response. It's actually less demanding on the nervous system because the uncertainty has already been resolved. The leopard standing in front of you is terrifying, but your brain only has to plan for one leopard. The rustle in the grass forces it to plan for everything at once and hold every possibility open simultaneously. This is the twist most people never expect. The unknown isn't scarier because it's worse. It's scarier because it's everything at once, undefined and unfinished. Your brain treats unresolved threat as more dangerous than resolved threat, even when the resolved threat is objectively worse. That's why people so often describe a strange kind of relief after finally receiving bad news. The diagnosis, the breakup conversation, the rejection email. Once the uncertainty resolves, even into something painful, your nervous system can stop running every possible simulation and focus on just the one thing that's actually real. You can watch this exact mechanism play out everywhere in modern life. It just wears different clothes than it did on the savannah. Think about the last time you sent an important text message and watch those three dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. The other person hadn't said anything bad. They hadn't said anything at all. But your stomach still tightened because your brain was filling that blank space with every possible outcome it could imagine. Think about checking your phone after a job interview, refreshing your email before any actual news has arrived. Has anyone replied? Not yet. The waiting itself produces a stress response your body can't easily switch off, because as far as your amygdala is concerned, you're still standing at the edge of that forest, listening for something in the grass. Even the apps on your phone lean on the same ancient wiring. Notifications, unread counts, that small red dot in the corner of an icon. They all rely on the same principle Burker's shock experiment revealed. Ambiguous, unresolved information pulls at your attention harder than information you already have. You don't check your phone because you're certain there's good news waiting. You check it because you don't know, and not knowing is unbearable. You can see the same pattern on a much larger scale. Think back to the early stretch of any major crisis you've lived through. A pandemic, a recession, a sudden round of layoffs sweeping through an industry. The hardest part was rarely the bad news itself, once it finally arrived and people understood exactly what they were dealing with. The hardest part was the weeks before that, when nobody could say how bad it would get, how long it would last, or who it would touch next. Entire populations sat in a version of that same forest clearing, listening for movement in grass that refused to either rustle or go still. A person who loses a job after months of company rumors and unclear warnings often describes the actual layoff as a relief. Not because losing income is good news, because the waiting is finally over, and the brain can stop running 1,000 parallel simulations and deal with the one outcome that's now real. This is also why rumors and conspiracy theories spread so quickly during frightening, uncertain events. When something alarming happens, and the real explanation isn't available yet, people don't sit calmly inside the unknown. They reach for any explanation, even a wrong one, because a wrong answer feels more bearable to the brain than no answer at all. Certainty, even false certainty, quiets the same circuitry that real information would. What does that tell you about the moments in your own life when a vague worry hits harder than an actual confirmed problem? It tells you that you're not broken, anxious, or weak. It tells you that a system built for forests and predators is still running underneath a life filled with inboxes, diagnoses, and unanswered texts. Your amygdala has no idea what year it is. It only knows there's a gap in the information. And to that part of your brain, gaps have always meant danger. So the next time uncertainty feels heavier than the bad news itself might actually be, you can recognize it for what it is. Not a personal failure to stay calm, just the oldest alarm system you own, still scanning the grass for movement, still unable to tell the difference between a leopard and a closed door. You're still in that waiting room. The phone still hasn't rung, but now you know why the silence feels louder than any diagnosis ever could. It was never really the illness your body was afraid of. It was the unknown itself, an alarm built for a forest, still going off in a room with nothing in it at all. And maybe that's the strangest part of all. The phone will eventually ring. The grass will eventually go still, or the leopard will eventually step out into the open. One way or another, the unknown always resolves into something specific. The only question is whether you'll spend the time before that happens fighting an ancient alarm, or simply recognizing it for what it has always been. For more videos, remember to like and subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and see you in the next videos.